Gloria Samuels stepped out of the sleek black Lincoln Navigator with the kind of quiet grace that didn't need designer labels. Her leather purse was clutched firmly in both hands, her wide-brimmed white hat casting a shadow of dignity over her face. The ribbon around it matched her shoes perfectly, a church hat, the kind her late husband had always admired. She carried herself with pressed seams and clean lines, each step measured with pride. This wasn't about wealth or appearances. She was there for one reason only: her son Derek. He had told her the lunch would be simple, a quiet toast after the signing of a historic deal. For her, that was enough. But before she could even make it past the marble steps of Greenwich Country Club, a woman in a navy blue uniform stopped her with cold efficiency. "Deliveries and staff use the back entrance," she said, not a smile in sight. Gloria tried to explain softly. "I'm here for lunch with my son, Derek Samuels." Still, the woman insisted, unmoved. Gloria had endured assumptions like this before, but the sting never dulled. And then, as if that weren't enough, a voice cut across the patio, sharp, deliberate. Victoria Hathaway, pearls heavy against her blouse, remarked loudly, "Well, I suppose they let anyone in these days. Are we letting the cleaning staff dine with us now?" Laughter rippled from a few corners. Gloria tightened her grip on her purse, willing herself to stay calm, but her heart sank. Across the lawn, Derek had just raised his champagne glass in toast when his eyes found his mother. Her path blocked, her dignity under fire. His jaw tightened, the smile fading from his face. He set his glass down with deliberate care and began walking toward her. Without a word, he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder and asked softly, "You okay?" She nodded, though it wasn't true. "I don't want to make a fuss, baby," she whispered. Derek met her eyes, steady and firm. "I know you don't, but I will." Turning to the staffer, he said evenly, "This is my mother. You just disrespected the most important person in this building." There was no shouting, no scene, just the quiet weight of authority. He escorted Gloria back to the SUV, opened the door himself, and helped her in. She touched his arm, urging him not to ruin his moment because of her. But his reply was sharp and tender all at once. "You are the moment." With that, he closed the door gently and turned back toward the marble steps, his calmness masking the storm inside. Back inside the dining hall, Derek's seat remained empty, the pen poised beside the final contract, waiting for his signature. A champagne tower sparkled in the corner, ready for celebration. But the atmosphere shifted the second Derek returned. No yelling, no outburst, just a heavy silence that pressed on everyone in the room. He stood behind his chair, hands resting on the back. "I want to say something," he began. The room froze. He looked at each face, stopping finally on Victoria Hathaway, who sat poised with her wine glass, confident the deal was untouchable. Derek's voice was calm, measured. "You all know how much this deal meant. Not just for our companies, but for the future of tech infrastructure in this country. This merger would have changed everything." He paused. Then his words fell like a hammer. "But I'm not signing it." Gasps, murmurs, confusion. "Wait, what?" someone whispered. Victoria laughed lightly, almost dismissive. "Let's not overreact to a misunderstanding. I didn't recognize the woman, that's all." Derek's reply was razor sharp. "That woman is my mother." When she tried to soften it, he cut her off. "You knew what you were doing?" "You said what you meant." Preston Ward, Hathaway's legal counsel, tried to salvage the room. "We've invested millions into this merger. There are serious implications if you walk." Derek leaned back in his chair, unbothered. "Then I'll see you in court. You can explain to a judge why humiliating my family was part of your strategy." Victoria muttered, "Don't be emotional." That was the breaking point. Derek leaned forward, his voice low but powerful. "You think I built this company from a corner office? I loaded trucks at 3 a.m. I drove routes myself. I ran payroll from a folding table when we couldn't afford an accountant. And I watched my mother take the bus to clean houses so I could keep the lights on. So when she walked in here wearing her finest, proud as hell, and you humiliated her, you humiliated me." The room fell silent. Derek stood tall one last time, his decision final, his words echoing through the silence left behind. There are deals that keep men awake at night, replaying numbers and signatures in their minds. But this, Derek Samuels thought, wasn't one of them. He walked out of the Hathaway luncheon without folder, papers, or handshake. Just silence. By morning, silence wasn't an option for anyone. A guest had leaked the story, and soon a Philadelphia business podcast ran with the headline, Black CEO walks out of $900 million deal after mother insulted by white billionaire family. By noon, Forbes and Business Today carried it. By evening, cable news anchors were already debating not the collapse of the deal, but the reason behind it. The next day, cameras caught Derek arriving at his Manhattan office like any other morning, coffee in hand, nodding at the receptionist. Reporters shouted questions about regret, about the Hathaway insult. He ignored them, stepping inside where his team was already drowning in calls. Investors were split, some angry, some confused, but a surprising number proud. Warehouse workers, teachers, even veterans filled his inbox with messages of support. Thank you for not letting that slide. That afternoon, Derek faced the press. No polished staging, no banners, just a folding table, a podium, and too many reporters crammed into too small a room. He looked weary but steady. I didn't cancel the deal because of money, he said. I canceled it because the second you allow disrespect into the room, it spreads. I wasn't raised that way, and I won't build a future on top of silence. When asked if Victoria Hathaway had made the comment directly, he confirmed without hesitation. Yes, loud enough for people to hear, loud enough for my mother to feel it. Another reporter pressed if that was truly worth walking away from nearly $1 billion. Derek's reply was quiet but sharp. Depends on what kind of company you're trying to define. He didn't linger. He ended with 7 words that would be replayed 1,000,000 times. Respect isn't negotiable, not for a check. That night, his words flooded TikTok, YouTube, and X. Others came forward. An ex-employee of the Hathaways recalled being told to use a service elevator. A Latina caterer shared how she'd once been forced to remove her apron before entering a lobby. The story spread like sparks in dry grass. Derek hadn't set out to start a movement, but one act of refusal gave people permission to speak. Meanwhile, chaos reigned inside the Hathaway boardroom. Stockholders demanded explanations, analysts warned of brand damage, and even their PR firm hesitated to spin the story. Victoria Hathaway refused to apologize. I don't apologize to people who overreact, she snapped. But her son Clinton pointed out the obvious. She'd insulted a man's mother in public during the signing of a $1 billion merger. Old money's aura of class was cracking, reframed now as entitlement with a smile. At Derek's own headquarters, things were no calmer. He was a symbol now, and symbols attract pressure. His executive team gathered in the glass conference room overlooking Market Street. Some had been with him since the warehouse days, but loyalty had its limits. Elliot Trammell, the CFO, warned of long-term fallout. Julian Ricks, the COO, worried the company would collapse without Hathaway's infrastructure. Nia Whitlow, head of marketing, cautioned that Derek had become the man who said no to $1 billion for his mother, a symbol that carried both power and danger. Derek listened, calm but resolute. It wasn't personal, he said. It was principle. When pressed if principle could bankrupt them, his answer was steady. Then we rebuild. At least we don't rot from the inside. The room fell silent. Slowly, Nia nodded. Elliot followed. Even Julian, reluctant but resigned, shrugged. For now they would hold. Respect or fear, it didn't matter. The line had been drawn. But beyond that room, not everyone was ready to stand with him, especially those who'd been counting on the payday. 2 days later, Derek's phone buzzed. A message from Theron Ingram, his cousin, co-founder, and one of the people who knew exactly how much that deal had promised. They needed to talk face-to-face, so Derek and Theron met at a small diner in West Orange, the same booth where they had once scribbled their first business plan on napkins. Theron was already there, sipping his coffee, when Derek slid into the seat across from him. I heard from Monroe Bank this morning, Theron said without preamble. They're freezing our credit line, the one we plan to use for West Coast expansion. Derek nodded as if expecting it. I figured they might. Theron's eyes narrowed. You figured? Derek, we were right there. This wasn't some random deal. This was our leap forward, our kids' future. And you threw it away because of your pride. Derek's voice was calm but firm. I didn't throw it away. I refused to build our future on my mother's humiliation. Theron leaned back, frustrated. Did you ever think maybe that was her fight to choose, not yours? Derek shook his head. She wasn't fighting, she was being stepped on. Theron sighed, his tone sharpening. This isn't Trenton anymore. You made a decision for all of us without asking, and now people think you did it for clout. Derek leaned forward. I did it because I was raised not to sell my name for a seat at someone else's table. Theron studied him, lips pressed tight. You're lucky they're calling you a hero. You better pray that lasts. Derek tossed a 20 on the table and stood. If it doesn't, I'll still sleep fine. But even as he said it, Derek knew the real storm hadn't hit yet. Not until the Hathaways made their next move. Far away, inside the fortress-like Hathaway estate in Greenwich, the family gathered around a long mahogany table. The air was heavy, no one daring to sip the wine already poured. Victoria Hathaway sat at the head, her hands clasped under her chin, her expression unreadable. Her eldest, Clinton, paced the floor while Bradley scrolled nervously on his phone. The only composed voice in the room belonged to Eleanor Wynne, their crisis PR manager. We need to issue a statement, she said. Something brief, acknowledging the incident, expressing regret, emphasizing shared values. Victoria scoffed. What values? That woman didn't belong there. That's not my fault. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. You just said that out loud in front of your children, while I'm trying to protect your legacy. Clinton stopped pacing. Mom, Derek walking away has already tanked investor interest in our tech portfolio. Do you get how serious this is? Victoria waved him off. He'll come back. They always do. Pride fades when money runs dry. Eleanor slammed her binder shut. You don't get it. This isn't about business anymore. This is cultural. He struck a nerve. Bradley finally looked up. People are calling him a hero, Mom. His speech is everywhere. They're quoting him like he's some civil rights leader. Victoria dismissed it. They'll forget by next week. Clinton stared at her, voice flat. No, they won't. You've become the face of elitist arrogance in every headline. And you haven't even apologized. I'm not apologizing for having standards, she snapped. Clinton's expression hardened. Then we're done. You've already cost us one deal. I won't let you cost us the family business. The room fell into silence. Victoria's empire, built on Polish and control, was beginning to crack. When the Hathaway Group finally released a statement, it was cold and corporate. The Hathaway Group regrets the recent miscommunication that led to the premature end of the merger. We continue to uphold values of inclusion and mutual respect. Derek didn't respond publicly, but his silence spoke volumes. Instead, the press turned to his past. Photos of young Derek delivering packages in New York, quotes from teachers recalling his relentless drive, and an old podcast clip where he had said, I'm not trying to join anyone's club, I'm building my own house. Meanwhile, Gloria herself became a quiet figure of strength. On morning updates, she sat gracefully, hands folded in her lap. I didn't ask for attention, she said, but I raised my son to speak when silence cost too much. When asked if she wished he'd signed the deal anyway, she smiled, gentle but unyielding. Some money comes with chains. I'm too old to wear chains. The clip went viral. Entrepreneurs quoted her. Influencers stitched her words. Companies began pulling out of Hathaway partnerships, not because of Derek, but because of what Victoria had come to symbolize. Through it all, Derek kept building. He met with partners, expanded his staff, and visited his mother every Sunday with gardenias and banana pudding from her favorite bakery in Trenton. Just when things seemed steady, an unexpected call shattered the calm. It was past 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. Derek was in his office, the building quiet except for the cleaning crew below. The call came from a blocked number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Samuels, a raspy voice said, I'm not calling to cause trouble. I'm calling because you need to know what they're planning. Derek frowned. Who is this? The voice continued. I worked with the Hathaways for 15 years on their acquisition team. You're not the first name they've tried to erase. They're preparing a countersuit. They're digging into your early filings, your first funding rounds, trying to paint you as unstable, reckless. They want people to believe you ruined shareholder value by bringing politics into business. They want to bury you. Derek's grip tightened around the phone. Why are you telling me this? Because I've seen it before. They destroy, then deny. You embarrass them in public, they'll try to erase you in private. The line went dead. Derek sat in silence, staring out the tall windows. He knew the Hathaways played hardball, but this was war, and it wouldn't stop with him. They would target his team, his reputation, even his mother. The next morning, he called Nia Whitlow, his trusted strategist. "They're coming after you," she said calmly when he explained. "Victoria doesn't lose quietly. She'll weaponize your story, twist it until you look like the aggressor." "Let her try," Derek replied. But Nia was already thinking ahead. "We need to show people who you are before she convinces them who you're not." And within 48 hours, she had a plan. The new media campaign wasn't built on slogans or flash, it was built on people. Warehouse workers recorded short clips, speaking honestly about their jobs and the culture Derek had created. Investors recounted his transparency during tough quarters. Former interns told stories of how he'd mentored them, never for publicity, never for show. But the most powerful piece was Gloria's. Seated in her modest living room, she faced the camera directly and said, "I didn't raise my son to be a businessman. I raised him to be a man who stands when standing means losing something." Her words hit like a thunderclap. Cable news amplified them. Hashtags surged again, and suddenly the Hathaway campaign of quiet discrediting looked exactly like what it was: bitterness. Still, the Hathaways pushed back. A week later, they leaked documents claiming Derek had violated partnership clauses during a 2010 deal with Stratus Line Logistics. It was meant to paint him as unreliable. But Stratus's CEO, Leonard Greer, went on record the same day. Derek walked away because he refused to cut wages for drivers. "I wish I had made the same call." The move backfired. Each attempt to smear him only deepened the wound the Hathaways refused to acknowledge. Inside their Greenwich estate, Victoria Hathaway felt the walls closing in. Contracts slipped away, gala invitations disappeared, even a museum board rescinded her honorary seat. Still, she refused to blame herself. "It's a fad," she snapped at her son Clinton. Outrage comes and goes, but Clinton wasn't convinced. "It's not fading, Mother, it's building. Because you've never admitted you were wrong." She sipped her coffee as if bored. "And I won't." He stood, voice steady. "Then the family business doesn't need you anymore." She said nothing, but for the first time her hands trembled. While the Hathaway empire crumbled, Derek faced a different test. In his mother's backyard, Gloria clipped basil from the planter box they'd built together. The evening sun washed the yard in orange light. Derek watched her quietly before asking, "You all right with all this attention?" She kept clipping. "Attention doesn't bother me, but I know what comes with it. They don't like when we leave with our heads high. It makes them feel small, so they try to make you smaller." He sat on the porch steps, sighing. "They're still spinning it, saying I blew up the deal over nothing." Gloria finally looked at him. "You know it wasn't nothing. Anyone who says that doesn't know the cost of respect." When Derek mentioned Theron's frustration, she joined him on the steps. "Every family's got their storm. But if you bend in the middle of it, what do you hand down to the ones after you?" He admitted softly, "I just wanted to protect you." She placed a hand on his arm. "And you did. But this isn't just about me. It's about what you represent now. Don't run from that." Later, back in Jersey City, Derek watched a news clip replay his own speech. It felt too polished, too deliberate, like someone he didn't recognize. His phone buzzed. A text from Leonard Greer. "DC Council wants you to lead a panel on ethical business practices." Derek stared at the screen. He'd never wanted to be a symbol. Symbols were heavy. People worshipped them or tore them down. But silence had its price too. The next morning he met with Nia and Julian. No arguments this time, just exhaustion. "We've stabilized," Julian said. Nia added, "The noise is helping. 3 mid-sized logistics firms want to partner. Because we stood for something." Derek shook his head. "Because I stood for something." Nia corrected him. "Exactly," Derek exhaled. "And now they want me to speak for it. Panels, committees, a movement," Julian smirked. "Maybe that's what comes next. You've built the business, now build the voice." Derek didn't look convinced. He picked up a marker and began sketching expansion plans on the whiteboard. "Let's scale without them. Prove we never needed that deal." Nia smiled. "Now that's the Derek I remember." Julian chuckled. "Took you long enough." Derek pointed to the calendar. "Next week I want an event. Not a press conference. Warehouse crew, interns, junior staff, food, music. Remind people who we are." Nia tilted her head. "Like a community day?" Derek shook his head. "Like a family reunion. The kind where everyone gets a plate." But before that vision could take shape, a thin, unmarked envelope arrived at his office. He opened it late that night, long after the building had emptied. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Mr. Samuels, you don't know me, but I know who you are. My father was the groundskeeper at Hathaway Ridge from 1985 until his death in 2009. He raised us on that job, proud even when invisible. I saw your story on the news and cried, not because I was surprised, but because for once someone said no and meant it. You reminded me of my father. He never had your platform, but he had your spine. Not everyone forgets where they came from or who they stand up for. With respect, Camille Pierce." Derek read it twice, then set it down gently. That name, Camille Pierce, stirred something. Later at dinner, he told Gloria. She said her father was the groundskeeper. Said I reminded her of him. Gloria gave a thoughtful smile. Funny how truth finds its way to you. Doesn't matter the route. Derek nodded, the letter's weight pressing on him, not with regret, but meaning. The next day, he asked Naya to find Camille. 2 days later, she called back. She teaches 4th grade in Harrisburg. Doesn't do social media. Lives quietly. Just her and a rescue dog. She didn't expect you to write back, Derek said. I want to visit her. Nia hesitated. Should I call ahead? No, Derek replied. I'll knock. 2 days later, he stood nervously on Camille's stoop, holding a bag from a local bakery. When she opened the door, jeans and a school sweatshirt, she froze. I'm Derek, he said quickly, lifting the bag. And this is banana bread. Thought you might be tired of people only wanting something from you. Camille blinked, then laughed softly. Come in before my dog eats you. Inside, the apartment was warm, lived in. On the shelf was a framed photo of a man in work boots, her father. Derek lingered by the mantel, eyes drawn to a framed photograph of a man in worn work boots. Your father? He asked softly. Camille nodded, her voice steady as she replied, He worked that estate like it was his own. Derek gave a faint smile. I know the type. She offered him tea, and soon they were seated, sharing stories. Camille spoke of her father's quiet defiance, how he never once called the Hathaways sir or ma'am, how he saved every paycheck, how he taught her to read with the very contracts and invoices he carried home. He would have liked you, she said, her gaze unwavering, not because you made it big, but because you knew when to walk away. They talked for 2 hours, no cameras, no recordings, just two people bound by a history neither had asked for but both carried in their bones. When Derek rose to leave, Camille pressed a faded photograph into his hand. Her father stood beneath a tall oak, rake in hand, pride etched quietly in his eyes. For when the world gets loud again, she whispered. Derek thanked her, tucking the picture into his jacket before heading out, realizing that sometimes the most powerful reminders came not from headlines, but from handwritten words and old oak trees. Not long after, a call from a nurse interrupted the fragile peace. Gloria had fainted during Bible study and had been taken to Capital Care Medical Center. Derek dropped everything, driving the turnpike with a locked jaw until he reached her room. There she sat upright, sipping ginger ale, annoyed at the fuss. I just stood too fast, she insisted. But Derek could see the fatigue in her eyes, the tremor in her hand. Tests revealed no looming catastrophe, but enough small warnings, a leaky valve, a mild arrhythmia, iron deficiency, that the message was clear. Life did not wait forever. That night, as they watched sitcom reruns in her hospital room, Gloria turned to him. You've done good, baby. He tried to laugh it off, but her words settled deep. He admitted he wasn't done yet. She told him not to wait too long to truly live. Her words spurred him forward. Derek announced the Gloria Initiative, a foundation for workers and their families, providing health screenings, child care, tuition stipends. No fanfare, no red carpet, just quiet action. Within weeks, it spread across the country. The narrative shifted, from confrontation to construction, from tearing down broken rooms to building better ones. At the first community day, under white tents and laughter, Derek addressed the crowd. I turned down $900 million. People called me crazy, but this is worth more than any check. As the evening sky dimmed, he reflected on how far he had come. Camille's father, his cousin Theron, the Hathaway boardroom, his mother's quiet strength. For the first time, he felt peace. But then another voice resurfaced from the past, carried through a blinking voicemail notification. Derek, it's Dwayne. the voice of his father's brother, the man who had vanished after the funeral, leaving only silence behind. Derek froze as the words played. Dwayne spoke with hesitation, regret woven through each pause. He admitted he had run from grief, too afraid to face a boy who looked so much like his brother. "I didn't need you to succeed," Derek murmured later when they finally spoke. "I just needed you to stay." The silence that followed was heavy but not empty. For 15 minutes they spoke, not about money or business, but about fishing trips, birthdays missed, and memories long buried. When they hung up, Derek didn't feel closure, but he felt lighter. At a team retreat, he shared the moment. "Forgiveness isn't approval," he told them. "It's refusing to let bitterness take up all your space." The words resonated, some nodding with quiet understanding. As he left the venue, a young intern caught up to him. "My dad always told me no one in business sticks to their morals. But you proved him wrong." Derek smiled softly. "No, my mother did." That night, walking to his car, head high and heart clear, Derek finally understood. Legacy wasn't about what you left behind. It was about what you lived through and what you refused to let die in silence.